Please join me in welcoming Evan Feldman, who's going to share with us the story and history of the day.
That's what I wanted to do. I want to speak at a Jewish event in a room full of rabbis. To give context to a Chabad, I could do this myself, Velvo. It's less noticeable when I do it. The biggest guy in the room has to stand up to fix the microphone for me, discreetly. But that's what everyone needs to do in a room full of rabbis about the most significant, or one of the more significant times in Chabad history. I'm going to give context to a room half filled with guys with beards and hats. So thank you, Rabbi. Esteemed rabbis, Rebbitzins, friends, good evening. I'm going to apologize that I'm going to read a fair bit of this because it just doesn't flow naturally, but I do have the distinct pleasure and privilege tonight to welcome you and to provide a small and simple introduction to why we're all here tonight. Forgive me, as while I may be skilled in certain areas, Torah knowledge and Chassidus is not yet one of them. 2 days ago was Yud Tes Kislev, a Yom Tov for Chassidim that we're celebrating tonight with this festive dinner and this program. But why and what does it mean? I'm sure, like many of you here, many of you know the whole story, but the other many of you know parts and pieces of it like I did. And following a couple of weeks of research, I hope that I'll be able to form a little bit more of a clearer picture for you. In fact, I wondered if Rabbi Nu thought this was easier because when he tried to get me to learn with him, I wasn't as forthcoming, that if he asked me to speak here, I'd have to learn the story myself. After 53 days in prison in Tsarist Russia, the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the first Rebbe of Chabad and author of the Tanya, was miraculously freed from jail. But how did this come about and why is it actually relevant today? To understand, we need to go back to the 18th century. The year was around 1700. It was a significant time of change, and it caught Jews by surprise. In Eastern Europe, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Chassidic Judaism, was born in 1698. And at the same time, in Western Europe, it was a time of scholars and enlightenment, emancipation, power of the individual, power of secularism, intolerance, tolerance, separation of church and state, and a time when people questioned the power of monarchy. This movement began to migrate from Western Europe to Eastern Europe, and it presented a challenge to the Jewish people, to our way of life, and to our future. Ghettos were opening, people were moving out, their way of life was changing, they were leaving the shtetls. Without walls, were we still a people? It was a time of crisis, and people were wondering, who are we? A large percentage of the population began to assimilate because life seemed good outside of the walls, and people began to migrate into 4 camps. Insulation, you separate yourself from the outside and close yourself in and hope that your kids don't find things outside the walls. It worked before, it doesn't work today. Assimilation, we know that story today. Compartmentalization, you choose what you feel is best from inside, from outside, and the reform movement, which I'm not making a comment about, but it was born out of that. And the challenge is, where do you draw the line of what's in and what's out and what's good and what's not? And the fourth was Chassidism that grew out of this period, but not as a response and not as a defense, but rather to give the Jewish people a perspective to relate to the time and to what then was modernity. Essentially, not how Torah Judaism fit into the modern age, but where does the modern age fit into Torah and Judaism? It was a new energy. And like today, it was a time of I as opposed to we. Choosing what we like and what we don't like, and what's familiar and what's not familiar, and what works and what doesn't work, and where we want to be and we don't want to be. It's nice that all these people are here today. Other people decided not to be here today. And like today, the most important technology and tool that everybody has is an iPhone. It's not a Wii phone. It's an iPhone. The Maggid of Mezerich was a disciple and successor of the Baal Shem Tov. He and his circle began to disseminate Chassidic teachings throughout Europe, and prior to this time, the teachings, primarily the Kabbalah, mystical insights of the Torah, were reserved solely for select scholars and Kabbalists, but now it was a new time. The Maggid of Mezerich is also closely connected to the 19th of Kislev, because 26 years before Rabbi Schneur Zalman's release from prison in 1772, the Maggid of Mezerich passed on. Before he passed, he said to Rabbi Schneur Zalman, "This is the day of our Yom Tov." So you may have noticed some people said Good Yom Tov, some said Chag Sameach, some said nice to see you, but today is actually in Chabad a Yom Tov. Rabbi Schneur Zalman, the Alter Rebbe, was the founder and first Rebbe of Chabad. We all know today Chabad is one of the strongest branches of Chassidism. I didn't want to say the strongest because I thought that was maybe too personal, so one of the strongest. Now don't forget the time. We said it's the late 1700s. It's a time of modernity, originating in the West, and it's moving east. It's a time of tsars and a time of kings, and a time when actually Napoleon was here. At the time, much to the concern of the many of his contemporaries, the Alter Rebbe was popularizing and making tangible the inner soul of the Torah. He refined and introduced the Chabad method of study and prayer, which is the only one I know because I didn't know any before. And it was something that was much easier for the masses, where I would probably find myself. And it's not simple to understand today, but in those days, people didn't read and they didn't write, and the majority of people were non-educated, and they were simple people. So anybody that was learned and was knowledgeable were a select few, and there were a group of people that were trying to keep that private. In the fall of 1798, Rabbi Schneur Zalman was arrested on trumped, no pun intended, up charges. I thought it fit really well. He was arrested because it was feared that his reach and teachings threatened the power of the Russian Tsar. This was related to many issues, but in particular rumors that were spread by those who feared his reach and his growing influence. The Alter Rebbe was a big supporter of Jews in the Holy Land, and it made matters worse because at the time, the Holy Land was controlled by the Ottomans, which was the Turks, and they were enemies of Russia. Following the Alter Rebbe's arrest, it was a time of crisis for his family, his town, and his inner court. The Chassidim immediately set to work to organize themselves to maintain and grow the Alter Rebbe's work, his teachings, to raise money for his household, to work for his release, and they began to fast daily, some a couple days a week, some every day, limit the amount of food they ate, the amount of meat they ate, and pray for his safety and his return. For the Alter Rebbe, it was initially a very harsh arrest and imprisonment. However, in the worst of circumstance, the Alter Rebbe never lacked hope, and he never lost faith or relented in his study or teaching of Torah. During the imprisonment, the Alter Rebbe was respected by his captors, and he spent time explaining and teaching them various ideas and tenets of Judaism. They began to come to him with questions and for advice. And even though he was a prisoner, the guards, the interrogators, they would all come, and they had tremendous respect for the greatness of the Alter Rebbe. One simple story explained how while he was locked in a windowless room and he used to pray 3 times a day, they knew he had to pray in the morning, in the midday, and in the evening. They came to him in the middle of the day and told him it was the middle of the night. And the Rebbe answered them that he said he knew it wasn't the middle of the night. He knew that it was time for mincha, because he actually felt the hours of the day and knew when he had to daven. It didn't matter if he had windows or he saw daylight. And initially, with no kosher food and he wasn't eating, the guards began to come closer to him, and they moved him to a more fitting location, and they provided him with assistance and with food. During his stay, it said he was visited in prison by the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezerich, both of whom had already passed. And he asked them why he was imprisoned. He was told by them that there was a decree on high that the Alter Rebbe was spreading his Torah too far and too wide to the masses, and that this was his punishment. The Alter Rebbe asked if he should cease teaching, and he was told that in fact he shouldn't cease, but he should increase his teaching. So 53 days later, it seemed like longer in the book, but 53 days later, the Alter Rebbe was fully exonerated and released on a Tuesday, Yud Tes Kislev. Rabbi Schneur Zalman saw these events as a reflection of what was transpiring above. He regarded his arrest as but an earthly echo of a heavenly indictment against the revelation of the most intimate secrets of the Torah. And he saw his releases signifying his vindication in the heavenly court. And following his liberation on the 19th of Kislev, he redoubled his efforts disseminating his teaching on a far broader scale and with more detailed and down-to-earth explanations than he even had before. The Alter Rebbe presented and taught Torah as a blueprint for life, that everything around us is a reflection of the divine. Previously, religion described God as talking to people, and you would read and hear what God was supposedly saying to you. And Chassidism explains that God is actually speaking through you. For this reason, the 19th of Kislev is viewed as the birth of Chassidism and known by Chabad as the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidism. Following his release from prison, the Alter Rebbe became much better known. Everyone in government circles knew him. The Tsar knew him. It increased his visibility. That was a good thing from a marketing perspective. During the imprisonment, the community gathered together, and they worked to organize leadership that could go out to the towns to continue to teach what the Alter Rebbe was teaching before he was there, so that prepared them for leadership and eventually shluchus. And they started to raise money because they were working to take care of the Alter Rebbe, to raise money to free the Alter Rebbe, and to actually fund his teaching while they were maintaining his family. So thanks to the Alter Rebbe today, we have a Chabad system of learning, praying, Tanya, Shulchan Aruch, and by extension, I know I wasn't supposed to speak about MTC or local Chabad, but by extension, through a few generations, we have this shul and this congregation and this dinner. So for us today, one of the best known facets of contemporary Chabad shluchus, which is based on the fundamental teaching from the Rebbe, that through dedicating ourselves entirely to a higher purpose, we can ultimately fulfill our full potential as individuals. It's that selflessness gives us the very life and light of our own souls. So the summary is that faith, trust, confidence, and emunah, combined with self-sacrifice, are what lead to ultimate success and redemption. That's what I got from the book. And the little surprise I have is that Yud Tes Kislev was really, I guess, Monday night and Tuesday. So today's now actually the 21st of Kislev, which is my birthday. So I figure by divine providence I'm standing here, and I didn't realize before, but you delayed and switched the night. So on my birthday, I wish you all a bracha that we should also be able to see the light and should bring out the teachings and continue to celebrate Yud Tes Kislev together for a long time. L'chaim.